Hi all, am I audible? Can I get a yes in the chat box? Like a yes or a boom in the chat box. Cool. Okay, so welcome everyone to this amazing evening. So today is our last session for the 3G School of Psychology's internship program. And yes, I'm Joel Kushi Rafael, the head national leader of 3G School of Psychology. So we have been organizing this internship from December 4th, and we have been adding a lot of interns and a lot of sessions by speakers, and also made them a lot of in a way which is interactive and also useful to everybody, and they can bridge the gap between their understanding towards psychology. So now I'd like to call upon the national leader Deepak to introduce our amazing speaker for today's session.
Yes, Joel.
Yes, Deepak.
So good evening, everyone. Now we have reached our last session of the internship series. Today's topic is cross-cultural perspectives in psychology. It is going to be given by Dr. Rajita Radhakrishnan, the HOD of psychology at Dr. MGR Janaki College. She is a she's very educated person. She has completed a PhD in the field of developing resilience among students with hearing impairment. She is also a gold medalist at the university level. She is also a counselor, primarily working with children, and she has got almost 14 articles published in various national and international journals. So, talking about today's topic, it is about cross-cultural perspectives. If you are going to develop any psychological testing, you should make sure that it is significant to each to the culture the subject is from. So, to in today's psychology, studying about cross culture perspectives is very much important. So, ma'am, can you take over from here?
Thank you very much, Deepak.
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope
Thank you,
I'm
ma'am.
audible. Is my voice clear?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Uh,
perfectly
yes,
clear.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, very good evening to everybody here. I'm very thankful to the 3G commune, the 3G School of Psychology for inviting me for this session. So today we will be talking about cross-cultural perspectives in psychology. Let me just share my screen. Just give me a minute. Okay. So today we would be talking about the cross-cultural perspectives in psychology. So everybody, we all have heard about this term culture. We all, I'm assuming that everybody here are psychologists, psychology students, or who are the professionals in psychology. So we all, these terms are all kind of very familiar to us. But how much are we connecting these terms, or how much are we actually thinking about what is the actual connection that is there between culture and psychology? Or is there a difference in the cultures? Like culture wise, do we really find a difference when it comes to psychology? That is what we would be dealing in the session today. So first, maybe we can just talk about what culture means. So culture is, we can see the term in our normal day-to-day conversations. We can see this in literature, we can see this in psychology, in anthropology, in sociology. We see this particular term in many disciplines. So, what is culture actually? So, according to Jones, it is how one person lives and is connected to history by habit. So, or basically, it is something that it is expressed by us. It's something that is a human made part of the environment, according to what Herskowitz says. It is there in our environment, but it is something that is the contribution from the part of the individuals, the particular individuals who are involved in the society. Culture is actually brought in by them. Okay. So there are many elements which are there when we talk about culture. We have the knowledge. I'll just start with the knowledge and stories. Like we all have heard stories as children, our mothers, our grandmothers, or somebody has told us a lot of stories. So what are the stories that we grew up hearing? Or what is the knowledge that we have got? So that is kind of it's there in our mind. Okay, this is how a person should behave, or this is how a person should react, or this is how a person should be in, like this is the perfect way to be in a particular society. So the values that we get from those stories, the language that we speak. Okay, so what is the language that we speak? The language may have a lot of respect which is there in it, or it may have, it really influences the way we think, it influences the way we behave, it influences the way we think. So language has a very big influence on our culture, the traditions, the rituals. What do we do? Okay, as a ritualistic manner or as a part of our tradition, what do we actually do? What are the techniques? What are the skills which our community wants us to develop? Okay, so what are the skills that we have? Or if it is a farming community, then the skills that they need is different. If it's a hunting community, then the skills that they need is different. If it is an industrialistic society, the skills that they need is different. So what are the skills that they have, or what are the skills that they are expected to actually develop as a part of living in that society? Then what are the tools or objects that they are expected to work on, or what do they really get to build their skills on? What are the tools that they get? What are the arts that they are exposed to? Is it martial arts? Is it fine arts? Is it literature? What are they basically exposed to? What do they eat? So the food has a very big connection to our culture. So many, food items that we think are not good are something that, that is what the grandmothers cook for their grandchildren in some other country. But for us, we say that it's a foreign food. We're not supposed to give it to our children. So food is very much connected to our culture. The drink, what is expected or what is acceptable as far as food and drink is concerned. We will be, going a little deeper into this later on in the session. What are the values that we have, or what is the greater community that we are exposed to? So all these aspects, they are, they kind of influence our culture a lot, and we call this the culture weave. So when we say culture, what are the factors that actually influence the creation of a culture? We said that there are certain stories that we grow up hearing. There are certain, there are certain values that are, given to us. So there are certain tools that we get. So what actually influences these factors, whether we are exposed to these factors or not, or whether we have access to these factors or not? First one is our ecology. What is the climate of that particular place? What is the population density? What is the extent of the arable land which is there, or the land which is suitable for cultivation, or the land which is actually fertile? So basically, the climate, if it is very cold or if it is very hot, or the population density, how much of resources are available for a person. So when we talk about human development and all, we focus on these things a lot. What is how much place does a person get per head, or what is the living area that a person gets? So all this can influence the way we think and we behave. How much resources does a person get? Food, water, money per head. What is the, what is the level of resources, or what is the amount of resources that a person can avail in that particular community or in that society? People, like who are the people there? Is it, do they live as a group, or do they live individually, or is there some level of cooperation, or do they interact with each other a lot? What are the basic human needs which are met and not met? What are the motives? Like I am assuming that everybody here would have heard about or would have studied about Maslow's hierarchy. So at which level of the hierarchy is that particular group of people in? Are they kind of, do they have food to eat 3 times a day? Do they have a safe place to live in? Do they have a good family? Do they have community support? Do they have enough friends? Do they have that self-esteem? Do they have a job of themselves? Do they have enough money to, sustain their family and their, have their needs met? So all these things again have an influence. And what are the psychological resources which an individual has? So when we talk about, the individual or the psychological resources, we talk about the toolkit, because uh, are those people aware of the resources that they already have, or do they realize the strengths that they have? Many times what happens is people may have that inner strength. Like we are most of us would be definitely Indians who are in the audience. So we are brought up in a culture where we are told that yes, you have the strength within you, you don't have to search for it anywhere else, you have the ultimate Brahman within you itself. So are these people aware of the resources that they have or the strengths that they actually have? So here again, do they know all these strengths that they have, or are they not aware, or are they in a situation where nobody actually told them that you have these strengths and you have to work on this? So this again influences the culture and the thought and the behavior of the individuals who are living in that particular society. So next we are moving on to the next step. So now we know, we have a general idea about what culture means. So what is cultural psychology? So, when we talk about cultural psychology, here we want to know what are the links which are there between culture and psychology. Like psychology is about our mind, about our behavior, about the biology behind behavior. All this comes under psychology. But what is the connection? Is there any link between the culture of that particular place, of that particular individual society, and the psychology of those people? Is there a link or is there a connection? So according to the cultural psychologists, they say that human behavior can be understood the best if we view it in a socio-cultural context. Only if we think about which is the society that the person is living in, what is this person exposed to, or what are the messages that the person gets from the society as a part of the culture. So if all these things are taken into consideration, only then we can understand the human behavior. Otherwise it's just, there are a lot of gaps there. So the reason why a person is saying something or doing something is because that is the only option that that person had. The person was never told that, okay, you have another option or you have a choice. So an erroneous decision or a wrong choice might be taken because that was the only option that the person was aware of. So that is again what cultural psychology says. You can understand a person's behavior only if you think about what is the society, which is the society that the person is coming from, and what is the culture of that particular society. So cultural psychology, it takes elements from anthropology, from psychology, from sociology. Like they take aspects from everything, like how the society was formed, how it is developed, and how it influences human psychology, what is the culture of that place. Everything together is what forms cultural psychology. Then next we are moving on to a slightly different element, which is cross cultural psychology. So after we get to know these terms in detail, then we would see why this topic is so important, or how as psychologists are we going to apply this in our day-to-day life and in our day-to-day practice. So what is cross-cultural psychology? It is basically studying how we are seeing the similarities and dissimilarities between the people, how they function psychologically, and what is the influence of their ethnicity, of their culture, of their race, of their, like all these things. How do these things actually have a role to play? Okay, we said psychology has biological factors cultural factors. All these things are have a very great influence on, or this is what psychology basically means. So how do these things differ, or how is the similarity there between the cultural groups, between the different ethnic groups, between the racial groups? Okay, and how are these connected? How are the ecological factors, biological factors, psychological factors, how are all these playing a role in how an individual develops? So it is basically concerned with how the behavior and the thought and the experience differs in different cultures, or how is it influenced by different cultures, or in the existing cultures what change can we bring in all these things. So this is what cross cultural psychology basically deals with. So below you can see a few photos from Korea. So there, if you see, the architecture is different, the way of dressing is different, the behavior is different, the language, everything is different. So we may find it very different, but for them, that is how you were supposed to dress. That is how a house or a temple or a religious place or whatever, how that is how it is supposed to look like. So, that is something what cross-cultural psychology deals with. What are the similarities, or what are the differences, or why do these differences or similarities occur? So that is what cross-cultural psychology basically deals with. So there are certain basic features. So like cross-cultural psychology, it includes cultural psychology, which means what is the connection between culture and psychology. Indigenous psychology, we'll see that in detail, and culture comparative psychology. How do you compare the culture between two different cultures and the psychology which is there in these two cultures? So it is slightly similar to intercultural psychology, but there they don't really see the similarities and dissimilarities. When it comes to intercultural psychology, they basically deal with what is there, like they just separate the two cultures and then study it. So it is not much of like it is slightly similar to cross cultural psychology, but we cannot say that it is the same. So this is again, three different aspects which connect psychology and culture. The first one is cross-cultural psychology, where culture is the antecedent variable and it is kind of seen as separate from the individual. We see how the similarities and dissimilarities occur because of the culture in the individual. So it is seen as a variable that is kind of preceding the whole, behavior that is being shown. Cultural psychology, here culture is there inside the individual. Okay, so how do we get to know about the society, or how do we get to know about ourselves, or how do we get to know about the people around us with the help of culture? Indigenous psychology actually deals with folk, or how that particular culture of that individual, like indigenous population, indigenous psychology. We have heard these terms a lot. So indigenous psychology basically deals with how that particular culture of that land, or how those folk theories of psychology can be formalized and can be brought out as a theory. Like Indian psychology is mostly talked about as an indigenous field, but that is not the case. Here we talk about culture, and how we talk about how the whole thought process evolved across centuries. So indigenous psychology basically deals with the folk culture, or the culture which is there in that particular place, or that particular locality. So this is again a little bit more about indigenous psychology, because we cannot understand about a person or an individual or a group without actually knowing where that person is from, or what is the folk culture of that place, or what is the what has been passed over across the generations to this individual. So the religious ideologies, the political ideologies, the historical elements, all this has a very big role to play. So again, ethnocentrism is again a kind of a term that is slightly related to cross-cultural psychology. So ethnocentrism is a tendency to view the world with certain filters. We are all aware of filters. We use filters when we take photos in our mobile cameras. So we have certain cultural filters. This culture, this is how the person is. Or, as we grow up, we were all told these people will behave in this way. This group will always be like this gender is like this. Okay. So whenever we come across those people or those groups or those communities, we see them through those filters, right? So it happens as we grow up, and once we grow up or when we are adults, we really don't notice that yes, I am using this filter, right? So we just think that okay, this is how the person is. I'm not I'm not biased, or I am not thinking with any filter that I had in mind. This is how the person is. So that is ethnocentrism, or it is how we view the world through our own cultural filters, which we got through from our parents, from our peer group, from the media, from our teachers. They all told us that this group is like this, or this is how you should behave, or this is how they should behave. It is normal for them to do like this, but not for you. So all that is something that we would call ethnocentrism. So next, we are again, these are just three more terms that I would like to discuss before we go into the applications. So how do we actually connect culture and behavior? There are basically three perspectives. So the first is absolutism, which says that there is a true psychological nature that is there with everybody. Okay, we can discover this if we separate the participants, or we just see the people separately, the people who are there, and the environmental factors which are there. If we separate both of them, then we can find out that there is a true psychological nature which is there with a person. So that is the first viewpoint. Second one is relativism, which kind of relates. They don't separate the person. They say that people are, you are related with your culture. You can explain about a human being only when you see them as functioning within that cultural system or that social cultural environment. That is what we mean by relativism. Universalism kind of combines both these things. Absolutism, where they say that they you can see that there is a commonality, or there is something similar between all these people, but you have to see all that with, you can't see take that out of context of culture. Everything is kind of connected. So that is what we mean by universalism. So these are the three major. If you go through, the literature on cross-cultural psychology, you are going to come across these terms a lot. All the explanations would be made based on these three, key points. Or this is basically how we would isolate the different elements from a cross-cultural perspective. And again, you have two different models, the ethic approach and the emic approach. So the ethic approach is, the emic, we'll start with emic. Emic is basically based on an individual. This is how I see it, or this is how my group sees it. Ethic is more of generalizing, or how we can think of it in a connected way or in a universal way. So this is again how you can actually see the cross-cultural differences. This is again, taken from Berry 1969, where they explain emic and ethic approach. So emic is basically based on one culture or one individual, or based on one system, whereas ethic is more it is more generalized in nature, or is it is more universal in nature. So from this part onwards, we would be focusing on why this cross-cultural perspective is important. So you cannot actually separate a human being from the ecology or from the cultural context. So I'll just move on to the next slide and just show you this. Like, this is something which was brought out by the World Health Organization in 2011. So if you could just zoom in to the image, um, like the red and orange are the countries where the life expectancy is above 75. Orange is above 75 and red is above 80. Green is somewhere like 65, 70, that range. All the shades of blue and violet are somewhere like below 55. So if you see US or the North America, some parts of South America, some parts of Europe or most of Europe, Australia, here if you see, the life expectancy is high, whereas in some parts of South America, most of Asia, you can see that the life expectancy is somewhere average, whereas in Africa, the life expectancy is very low. In most of the places, it is somewhere between 50 and 55. So, what actually makes it, so different? You understand? We all are going through the same situations as far as the whole world is concerned, but in each cultures, the life expectancy is itself is different. Poverty, how a person lives, what is the person exposed to? Okay, what are the cultural factors? What are the norms which are prevailing in the society? What are the values? What are the attitudes that they have towards health related behavior? So in each culture, the health related quality of life, it is one of the variables which are used a lot in current research. The health related quality of life differs drastically across cultures. So how do we perceive the health related activities? How far do we engage in those activities? All these have a very big role to play as far as culture is concerned. Like culture plays a very big role in all these things. Then what is our role as psychologists in this? So we really have to bring in that psychoeducation or that awareness in people, which tells them that this is not health related behavior. This is what you are expected to do, or bring in some level of change in the society, or at least in the mindsets of the people. If there is a group of people who are living in utter poverty, then as a psychologist, there is a limitation to what we can do. But there may be people who can really afford to adapt some of the health related behavior in their life, but they do not, because they are not given the awareness that this is what you are supposed to do, this is what you are supposed to eat when you are pregnant, or this is what you're supposed to feed your children, or this is what you're supposed to eat at this particular stage of development, or when you're old, this is going to help you. So all these things, it can be that awareness can be brought in by psychologists. Or abuse. In certain places, it's perfectly all right. Okay, you belong to this gender or you belong to this community. It's okay to be abused. Or I don't have the right to voice against this particular kind of abuse, or the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, or the domestic violence. I'm supposed to go through it. So we can change that, kind of a mindset that is there in the people. Or if there is any disaster, this is what you have to do. This consequence is there, but you can get over that with this set of behavior. So all these things can be these are the changes that psychologists can actually bring in the life of people. So this is a figure which is basically from a book, which kind of tells us which are the factors which influence our disease, or the chance for a person to get a disease, how culture is connected. Okay, so if you have an undesirable life event, or if you belong to a particular culture, all both these can affect the availability of social support that you have, the way you perceive events. So your culture can influence your socialization, your personality, your genetic structure, or what background do you come from, or how your family is. That again influences your personality. That in turn influences how you perceive an event, how much training you have got, how have you been trained to deal with a psychological issue or a traumatic event that you may face in life. There are people who are fortunate enough to be told that if you come across this situation in life, this is how you should react, or this is how you can make use of the strengths that you have. That leads to how you perceive a particular event and the availability of social supports that you have. That in turn determines what level of stress that you would face. The stress, like we all are talking a lot about, like health psychology is a booming field nowadays. So there we talk a lot about how stress can have a role to play in your, in your health, or to have a, to contract a particular disease. So stress, it may or it will definitely lead to a particular precursor of a disease, and then you get diseased. So disease basically means that it influences your quality of life, it influences your life expectancy. So all these things have a very big role to play. Then the next one is spirituality, science, and health. So spirituality, basically it is something that is talked about a lot nowadays. So spirituality is something that, we generally see it as something that connects us, or something that helps us to go to a higher plane. So, and there has been a lot of research which tells us that, uh, having that element of spirituality in your life can actually help you to cope in certain situations, or it helps you to, do well as far as health related behavior is concerned, or reduces the chance for, cardiac issues. This all has been proven scientifically. So what role does culture have to play in spirituality and health? So there are certain people who believe that this is the right thing to do, or it is all right to not eat, or it is all right to eat this or not to eat that, or to engage in this kind of a behavior in life. So all this we may kind of connect it with spirituality, and we may do it. Or they may say that this particular disease does not need a cure, or there are certain communities which say that psychiatric conditions, that is because that person has sinned, or it is something that is, there because of the past life experiences or the karma of the individual. So you really don't have to, treat that individual. That individual was supposed to have this particular condition, and let him just, live with it. So as as a psychologist or as a counselor, we may actually have to deal with these things. Okay, this person belongs to a culture where they say that this is how they should behave, or this is the treatment plan that they should have, or this is something that they should avoid, or something that they should take into consideration. So in all these situations, like as far as we are concerned, or as far as we as a psychologist is concerned, we can take that into consideration as far as when we are talking with the individual. Okay, we can say that, okay, this is your belief system, but it doesn't mean that we have to endorse it. Yeah, say that that is right. We may have to work in a different cultural situation, or we may have to deal with clients who are from a different culture. So we can listen to them, but if it is, going against your treatment plans, or if it is going against the well-being of the individual, we can actually take a step against what they say or what they really think of. So that is where, spirituality and culture are connected to health and to modern day science. So, many times culture prevents people from receiving help or asking for help. So in those situations, again, that is something which can be tackled with the help of awareness. And again, we can see a lot of culture influences in organizational behavior or in business decisions. So when we think about the cross-cultural issues when it comes to business decisions or when it comes to an organization, basically we want to create an atmosphere where there is no bias, or nobody really feels left out, no matter which culture that person comes from, or what background that person comes from. We really want that person to feel that he is a part of that organization, or he or she is a part of that whole whole family, if we could call it. So here again, there has to be awareness. Okay, this is how this individual thinks, or this is the background that that person comes from. So here we need cultural knowledge as well as cross-cultural knowledge. So here again, we have to bring in those aspects of how how those people think, or how the other people have to be aware of that. So again, there has to be some kind of training given to all the people there, so that they accept everybody without those cultural filters which tell them that no, I should not be talking to this person, or I should not be interacting with this person, or I really don't have to take this person's opinion into consideration. So that is again where culture plays a role in the business decisions. Again, there you might have heard people say that, okay, all these people look alike. People with this kind of an eye, or people with this kind of a hair, or people who look like this, all of them look similar to me, or I really can't make out the difference between all these people. So that is because we really don't give so much of importance to look into what are the different features that those people have. So all these are certain changes that we as individuals can bring in to ourselves, okay, in our thought process or in the way that we deal with people. So this is again how cross-cultural research uh, takes all these elements into the organizational culture, or the context in which we can explain how culture influences the organization. So the societal context, what are the resources that the people have, or what is the social or the political atmosphere of that place? What kind of a society do you come from? Is it an individualistic culture or a collectivistic culture? So we Indians are mostly collectivistic in nature. The people, most of the Westerners are, they come, we call them as an individualistic culture. So what kind of a culture do you come from? What are the outcomes that are generally there? There are certain places where just shooting somebody down is kind of it's just like normal. Okay, I saw somebody shooting somebody last night, it was just fine, it's normal or very common in this country. So what are the, how do all these things actually influence the organization? What kind of an industry are you working in, or what are the values which are there, or what kind of interactions do the people have, the people who are at the same level of the hierarchy, between the different levels of the hierarchy, what kind of interaction do these people have among each other? What are the outcomes which are there? Are these people actually happy, or what, how well do they perform? Do they is the organization able to tap the full potential which is there with these people? So again, these things play a role in how well an organization would function. So again, this brings in the importance of knowing about the culture of the people involved and the culture of the place where the organization exists. So this is yet another application of cross-cultural psychology, working with immigrants. So especially during the COVID lockdown, we were hearing a lot about immigrant laborers, or people who are coming from different places who are coming back. So one of the major issues that we face when we deal with immigrants is the element of acculturation, where the individual actually adjusts to a new culture. The person actually says that, okay, this is how I should change, or this is how I should, you know, excuse me, this is actually how we should be when we are in this culture. Like once a person lives in a different culture for 10 years, you can actually see a slight change in that individual's thought process or the behavior or the day-to-day activities that the person involves in. So that is because of this element of acculturation. So here when we deal with immigrants or when we deal with the people who are living in a different culture, we actually focus on the stress factors, like living in your own culture and living in a different place, be it a different state in the same country or be it in a different country, whatever it is, when you are not in the same culture that you grew up in, that leads to a lot of stress because you are expected to adjust to the new culture, say things that you were not used to saying, do things which you have never done ever in your life, or engage in certain rituals or practices which you have never heard of. So which means you need a lot of resources, you need a lot of psychological resources which would help you to overcome that stress. So in in an informal conversation that I had with an immigrant person who is actually in like has migrated from India to a well-developed nation, that person said, okay, my daughter is participating in a particular uh, fancy dress competition. So all the other people ask me what is the role that she's playing, or what is the what is the uh, what is she dressing up as. So this person that obviously an Indian. So if you see, there is that there is some kind of discrimination saying that okay, we really have to focus more on our people rather than the migrant people who have immigrated to our land. So do we really need that discrimination? Let it be somebody else who's migrating from their place to our place, or us migrating to some other place. Do we really need that discrimination, or do we really need that acceptance? So if you see, if there have been a lot of longitudinal studies which have taken place, people who have done really well in their lives, in their studies, and they have migrated to other places. If you see their children who are growing up in a different country, they don't do as well as their parents did because they faced issues in that particular place. So they didn't get as many resources as their parents got in their homeland, in spite of them being in a much more developed nation. So here, if we think about culture and migration in this element, like in this aspect, then yes, we have to think about how we can overcome this. It's not just about the daily wage laborers, but also about the people who have done really well in their childhood or during their educational phase and have migrated to a different place. What is the level of acceptance that they get in a different culture? So what do we do about it? So again, there is mostly an issue when it comes to counseling. So when these people, especially the people who are, they are in a lower socioeconomic background, they don't have access to counselors who can actually talk to them in their language. So they are totally, in a place where they don't get that psychological support that they need. So what do we do about it? So how do we, and this can also be applied when it comes to people with physical disabilities. So if it is a person with a hearing impairment, how do we cater to the psychological needs of that individual, because that person may not be able to converse in spoken language with the counselor, or that individual may not be able to understand when the counselor says something. So how do we uh, provide psychological support to that person? Okay, how do we provide psychological support in the language that that person knows? So in this particular situation, it is sign language. So if the person uses Indian Sign Language, how do we provide psychological support in Indian Sign Language? If it is an immigrant laborer, how do we provide support in that person's language, native language or regional language? So all these are issues that we really have to think about. And then education. So most of the children who belong to a minority, it may be a linguistic minority, it might be a community minority, they are proven to show lower scores on intelligence and most of the cognitive ability tests. So when we talk about education, there are many factors which play a role in it. There is the parental involvement. How much does a parent involve in the child's education? How is the test done? Like, is it a culture free test? There was a very senior psychologist, Indian psychologist, who actually spoke about how he tried to administer a culture free test among a tribal community. And they all came in a they all got scores which were very low, and it didn't involve any language, it was just colors. It was a block test. So then later on, he came to understand that those people don't really take one particular color in that block. They don't consider that as a color. For them, the only color that they know is the color of the sky, the color of blood, the color of leaves. That's all they know. So any other color doesn't really, they don't consider that as a, we have like, for us, we have blues itself, we have like 20, 30 types of blue, 50 types of green, 10 types of red. We have all that. So we are kind of used to discriminating colors so much when it comes to clothes and things like that. But some people may not be the case. So we cannot just assume that a test is culture free, but we have to think from the perspective of that particular group. And how do we provide better developmental experiences for the child? How much exposure does the child get to different conceptual knowledge or different toys or different situations? How much experiences is the child exposed to? And then the law, like there was a situation, like there was an incident where a woman was fired from her job because she ate pork in the office. She was living in a country, she was working in a country where eating of pork or bacon was it was not allowed. She was fired. There have been incidents where burqas were not allowed to the workplace. They were, and the woman was fired, and then she had to fight a lot to make sure that she wanted to get it accepted as a part of the accepted attire for the workplace. And then showing particular religious symbols across, like, can it be exhibited in a classroom? So all these things can play a role. So what basically happens when the environment becomes supportive? So in all these examples, we said that we have to support, we have to accept the people no matter what culture they come from. We have to have that tolerance towards any individual who comes in front of us, irrespective of what culture he belongs to. So when there is a supportive culture, we are accepted by others. That leads to a better intelligence, higher happiness quotient, better health, more kindness in the society. Then that in turn contributes to the culture. So it is kind of a vicious cycle. So again, human rights. We all say that we want rights, we want to live a healthy life, we want to be safe. So again, that differs from culture to culture. Like, how much do we have to accept the rules? How much rights are given to a child? There are certain countries where if the mother or father scolds the child can just call the police and get them arrested. So, but here, especially in India, we don't like, now slowly the awareness is coming to everybody that there are child rights. So there are different elements in it. In the workplace, for a child, in a marriage, what are the rights that you have? Are you allowed to say no, or is it all right to say no? So again, working and serving abroad, So here is again one another, this is the last application that we would be talking about. So whatever job that you are doing in some other place, especially if it is something related to news or reporting, then again you have to take that particular culture into consideration. So there are different types of censorships. Political, you're not supposed to say anything against the government. You're not supposed to say anything against the principles of that particular society. You are not supposed to, say something which is against the morality standards that are set by that culture. So all these are, certain things that we have to take into consideration. There are certain places where if you get to buy a magazine, you'll have only like 3 or 4 pages in it. They'll tear off all the other pages because they find that it was those pictures or the photos which are there in that magazine are inappropriate. So there are places like that. So what is expected from the media in that particular culture? So how do we make that a little more inclusive? So when we take all these things into consideration, there are a lot of studies which are coming nowadays which have a different focus. They are not focusing only on that particular culture. They are not very anthropologically oriented. They are more psychologically oriented. They are not theory driven, they are more data driven. It's not just about the theory. You have to see what is happening in the society right now. They are using more better or modern data collection methods, better methods for analysis. They're more comparative and they don't focus only on one particular element or one particular individual or one particular culture. They are, focusing more on inclusion or seeing how we can take all the different cultures into consideration. So this is actually a good trend or a positive trend. So like the whole takeaway message that I would give from the whole session is how we should be more open or accepting to the different uh, cultures which may be there. So I'm stopping with thank you, which is I try to make it as culturally inclusive as possible. There are thank yous in different languages. I'm sorry, Tamil is not there, but you have a lot of foreign languages. So thank you. These are my contact details in case you need to contact me for anything. Please do. This is my email ID, my phone number, and my LinkedIn profile. I would be happy to connect. So over to the host.
Yes, ma'am. So thanks a lot. Thanks for the wonderful session, ma'am. So if you guys have any doubt regarding this session, you can unmute yourself or post your questions in the chat box. Ma'am will be answering some questions, 2 to 3 questions, and then we can move on. So does anyone has any doubts about the session?
I don't see any. Yes, I can see one question in the chat box. Kainat Yusuf.
Yes.
Can we
Okay.
use
Sure.
cross-cultural psychology to find out the prevalence of disease for health? Yes, all these subdomains we can say in psychology are kind of connected. So when we focus on health psychology, we have to take culture into consideration. Like we can't just say, okay, you are stressed or you are you are, so this that is why you have this situation. We have to think about what can be done about it. Is the culture the reason for it, or is there any change that we can bring in the society to help the person come out of that situation that the person is in? So of course we have to take the cultural aspects into consideration. Whatever, like even if it is counseling, we have like so many subfields in psychology right now. Whatever it is, be it organizational or health or counseling or clinical or school or educational or whatever, culture is a big factor that we have to take into consideration when we are dealing with an individual. I hope that answered your question, Kainat Yusuf.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, in one of your slides, you show that it is a culture-free taste. So, what are those tastes?
Culture, yes, even if it is in intelligence tests, you do have culture pre-tests, which which don't have language in it, or which doesn't take the culture into consideration. So we have to try to use culture free tests as much as possible. But even there, as I told you in that example that professor quoted, you can't just assume that just because it doesn't have language, it is culture free. So there may be many other, elements which come into it, which makes it a little culturally biased. So as much as possible, any test that we develop or which we use should take all the people into cultural. I mean, which sorry, I was just reading the question. So which anybody can use, irrespective of their culture or the language they speak, or their physical condition or their educational background. Anything that any test that we use should be applicable for all these people who are there. I just missed the question. Let me just see it. Can we use cross-cultural?
Ma'am,
Yes. We
actually, can you host me, ma'am? Actually, there was some mistake, and we made you as the host. Can you give
how
me
do I
back
do it?
the host, ma'am?
How do I do it?
You just have to click my name, Deepak Isach. Click my
Okay.
name, and you will
Deepak
find it,
SH.
ma'am. You can more
Big
option. You
host.
can find.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
So
Thank you. Thanks a lot,
yes,
ma'am.
in positive psychology, we talk about hope, we talk about resilience, we talk about how we can uh, bring an individual from the situation he is into a much better state. So yes, again, their culture can have an influence. So whatever, like we have all those characters, strengths, virtues, everything that we talk about in positive psychology. So there again, like it differs from culture to culture. Okay. So when we talk about resilience, or when we talk about hope, it can vary from culture to culture. It can vary because of the whatever the person had to go through in their current life situation, what the history of the place is, what gender the person belongs to. So all this can have an influence on what your particular level of what your particular level of strength is. So there again, we have to see whatever strength the person has in the light of culture. So yes, it is again connected. Do we have any more questions?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, in one of your slide, you have shown that up to some extent, some social abusement, like depending on the culture or
Social.
whatever uh, the abusement on the basis of the culture and the religion or whatever we belong to, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Till what extent we have to tolerate this? Because once we say it, okay, but at some time it just spreads like a slow poison, and it mentally actually affects us very badly, actually. So
Yes.
up to what extent we have to tolerate, and is there any remedy or a solution to take an action over it?
As a psychologist, we generally think we are, kind of everybody. Like it's not just about the field of psychology. We just, channelize ourselves thinking that I am only a clinical psychologist. I will deal only with these clinical cases. I am a school psychologist. I'll deal with only the issues that the children or the students in my school face. But one thing that we all definitely have to do, everybody, irrespective of what field that you choose, we have to bring in that change in the society. Okay. So it is not just about you earning, or you serving the organization that you work for. It is about bringing a change in the mindset of the society. So once we get to know about the culture, or once we get to know about why people do this, or why people say this, or why people behave in this particular way, and when we try to give the awareness to the larger public, then we can see the change. we can't change one individual, and it is not an overnight process. It happens, gradually, with so many people actually working towards it. So if one, just one element from this lecture or this session has gone into the 50 plus people who are attending this, and you all just feel that yes, I have to do something to make my society more inclusive, or more accepting to all the people around me, and I should make some change in the society. If that just spreads to two people from each one of you, then we can create that ripple effect. So that is what that is really what we can do for the society. As I'm it's an assumption that everybody here is from the field of psychology, so don't just stick on to your job or your group of clients or your set of people who are working around you. Just try to make some kind of a change in the wider public, so that can actually bring in that change. So that is what I would suggest, because there is it's a very thin line. How much do I have to tolerate? It's a very beautiful question, actually. To what level do I have to tolerate? So it's a very thin line, what is accepted and what is not accepted. So that change in mindset is really what is going to solve the problem. I
Yeah,
hope
thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
my pleasure.
So thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for the session. Thanks you for the time you spent. So it was a really amazing session and a great presentation, ma'am. So thank you very much. Just allow me 1 second. I will present my screen.
Stop presenting.
I hope you can. Yes, ma'am. I hope the screen is
Yes,
visible. My screen is.
present.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am. In behalf of our organization, we are presenting you this e-certificate. I will also be mailing you this in some time, ma'am. So thank you. Actually, you took a great time, and it was a great time for all of us. You answered all the questions very well, ma'am. So thank you. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
My pleasure.
So Joel, are you
Yes,
here?
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Deepak, I'm here. So thank you, ma'am. So you have been the part, like the in the end of the session, like throughout our internship program. This is our last session of this 1 month internship, and we are very lucky to have you here, ma'am. And actually, in the session, you told the importance about working in cross-cultural platforms, and that's the way of life to learn about and a lot of people and work with them and all. It gives a different flavor to our life actually, and going to different places and all, ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am. We are lucky to have you here. And yes, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much. Yeah. So I would like Deepak to give us short statistics about our internship program that we have had. So yeah.
So first of all, I would like to thank Irfana and Sai Chorel sir, the founder and co-founder of the organization, and then I would like to thank Johel and Nishi for making me believing me that I can do this organize them 15 to 17 sessions, and I would like also to thank Reshika, Faru, and Soham who created the posters. They helped in marketing the event in social media, and also they were very helpful in managing the sessions, and Magdalene, Monica, Gugan, and yeah, and there were like so many people. Actually, they were helping us in making the assignments and managing the assignments. And we all will be getting the certificates once we have completed the assignments in 10 to 15 days. Most likely, you will be getting the certificates in 10 to 15 days after the event. And then, yeah, actually, like I would like to thank Hemanshi, Garvita, Prasansa, and these people. They actually they also helped a lot in managing the sessions. They acted as co-hosts. They managed the text so well. So thanks everyone. We started the sessions at 12th December, and today is 28th January. So in this 45 days, we have organized around 17 sessions. So yeah, it's quite a great journey. And thank you all. Thank you all. So I wish I will see all of you in the main event on 30 and 31st of January. So that's it, guys. So thank you all for this great day.
And also for the new people who have been here in our internship program. And I would like to thank to all the state leaders and our volunteers, college leaders for taking their efforts in every day. Like they've been asking us, our admins about the doubts and how to manage with the volunteers and all. So from my heart, like from all our 3G School Psychology team, we'd like to thank you everyone. And based on their efforts, only like new people who have here joined recently also in our internship are able to get this amazing sessions. So yeah, so we planned this session internship program for giving something beneficial to all the psychology students, like making the sessions more interactive and giving a place for you to think you're on your own. And Deepak and his team had created an amazing assignment way so that we look at the session, and also based on that we think on our own and get the solutions. So yeah, so thank you everyone. So today is our last session of this internship program, and let's see, we might be hosting internships further in future. And also day after tomorrow is our event. So today and tomorrow will be an opportunity for you guys to bring in more people and make this an amazing success. We have crossed 9,000 registrations now. So let us join our hands to make it a 10K, to make it a real world book of record event. Okay, guys. So yeah. So if you want to know more about us, please be in touch. We want to you guys to interact and have an amazing journey in 3G School of Psychology here. So this is an open platform where if you guys have any talent, like crazy ideas, to who think that whatever things in world is possible, those people are really looking forward to have more sessions and more events just like this. So yeah, in November we started this program of conducting this international psychology conference, and we charted out and a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of Soham and Reshika. They have been there in a strong support in the content creation and also in the marketing thing. And a lot of people have been a part. They have sacrificed a lot of days, and during those exams and all, we were all preparing and looking forward how best we can give for our volunteers and also to our interns. So yes, so here I am, Joel Christy Raffel and Deepak here, who have been here throughout all these sessions. Like we have been sacrificing our afternoon sleep and all. So yeah, so we've been there for you guys to support 24/7 throughout these months, and I hope you guys will be benefiting from this all, and you'll be able to check all the assignments, do the submissions on a Google Classroom, and don't forget to drop a suggestion over there and whatever things that we can change, or we can improve in benefiting you guys. I mean, we are not looking for any mistakes actually. So yeah, so thank you everyone for being here. So now it's your part to send in your registrations, make people register through your friends, and make this happen. So that's all. We'll be having the conference on January 30 and 31 and on Feb 1st. The timing will be from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. So it will be hosted on Zoom platform and also on YouTube. So in YouTube, it will be on live streaming. So you don't have to sit there for all the sessions. So we'll be sending the agenda out soon. We'll be mailing you each and every one of you guys so that you will know which session you guys need to attend based on your interest. Okay. So when you find a session interesting, make yourself comfortable, free at that time, and please be there on live. And we're looking forward to see you over there. And yes, let's make this an amazing, great event, like in the world's best revolutionary event in psychology. So please stay in touch with us on Instagram. My ID is Mentalist, and Deepak is also Deepak named over there. And do follow us on Instagram at 3 Cross Psychology, and also check out our website. In our website, every detail is there with sharp and clear, crystal clear. So do follow us over there. And for more updates, log in. If you can, if you're a volunteer, log in with your registered email ID, and you'll be able to see your referral code, number of registrations that you made. You'll be from there only you'll be getting your participation certificate, volunteer certificate, and also if you want, you can buy the World Book of Record certificate. So thank you everyone. So can I get like excited or a boom in the chat box now, so that you guys are excited, so that I know that okay, something is happening over here. Cool. Awesome, guys. So it's been a great journey, and yeah, and I'm doing my BC Psychology third year. Like we all are college students. Deepak, Nishi, Soham, Reshika. Now we are all college students, and it's been an amazing journey with you guys, trying new things. So yeah, some small advices. If you have something crazy idea in your mind, what I would say is just do it, and things will fall in place. And always remember that whatever problems comes into your life, let yourself know that the show must go on. Thank you, guys. So I'm ending the meeting. Okay then.